This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Welcome to Moments of Clarity with Tiffany Werner, licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida. Moments of Clarity's mission is to educate and end the stigma on mental health through the inspirational stories of our exceptional guests. You can join in the show by calling Tiffany toll-free at 866-826-1340 or on Facebook and Twitter at MOC with Tiffany. Now, here's Tiffany Werner.
Hi, thanks for listening. This is Moments of Clarity. My name's Tiffany Werner. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I'm your host. And today we are going to be talking about sexual childhood abuse, surviving with addiction and recovery, and so much more, and living with recovery. And my guest today is a child sexual abuse survivor, and she struggled with heroin addiction for over a decade. And she spent 3.5 years in prison. She was a part of domestic sex trafficking to support her addiction. And she got sober on April 7th, 2018. And she's been sharing her experiences through her journey through recovery, sober parenting, and motherhood, raising awareness for addiction and mental health on her platform on social media, Sober Momster. And she speaks throughout the community to raise awareness and break the stigma on addiction, spreading hope that life after addiction is possible. I'm excited to introduce my guest. First, I want to say hi to Ed behind the glass.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Happy post-Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. You're rushing it.
Halloween. Just kidding. Yeah, it's like I'm already in November mode. Sorry. Anyway, I want to introduce to my show my special guest, Krista Tur. Hi, Krista.
Hey.
Hi. Welcome to Moments of Clarity. And wow, what an introduction. And you've been through so much. And I'm really excited to have you on the show and for you to share your journey because it's really phenomenal. And I watch you on Facebook Live, and not only are you funny, but very insightful. And I just love what you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you. I love what you're doing.
I'm
excited to be here.
I am very happy to have you. So let's go to the beginning, Krista, where your past, where you found your moment of clarity and how you got to where you are today.
So going back to the beginning, I feel like there's just so much a part of my story, and I always struggle with where to start at because there was just so many different things that contributed to my moment of clarity. So I guess kind of like
every time you say that, I'm ringing a bell.
Okay, that's fine. Not distracting at all. Not kidding. So my childhood, I grew up as an only child, and both of my parents were addicts. My father's an addict, and my mother is an alcoholic. So I was exposed to that kind of lifestyle at a young age. I definitely wasn't kept from it, and I suffered from, I am a survivor of child abuse, sexual abuse at the hands of my father, and that happened at a really young age. I can't pinpoint the exact age, but I think it was like around 8 years old, and this happened for a matter of years. That I let it go on without telling anybody, and I'll go back, but like I started using drugs at a young age. I was sexually active at like 12 years old, and drugs followed suit in the same year, and it was just my entire like preteen and teenage years was just an endless cycle of drugs and sex and missing a lot of school and being able to get away with it as well. I didn't have many consequences growing up. I learned how to manipulate and lie, at an early age. My addictive behavior surfaced in my life far before I picked up that first drug. And I'm finding that out, through practicing my recovery today. So I'll kind of go back to the sexual abuse with my dad. I was, like I said, I was an only child on both sides. My parents weren't together. They had, divorced when I was still a baby. So it was, two separate families, but I was always a daddy's girl. My dad has this infectious personality, and you can't help but to laugh around him, and he just seems like the best guy,
Mm-hmm.
And so I spent weekends with him and his now ex-wife, and it just, that time spent alone while my stepmom was working. Like I said, it happened around like 8 years old. And I think in my mind, like, I knew what was happening and what was going on. And like, I knew that it wasn't normal. I knew that it wasn't right. Like I said, I wasn't sheltered from, adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
I knew about drugs and sex and all of that children probably shouldn't know about at that age.
Right.
So I knew that what was going on, but I just loved my dad so much, and I wanted, his approval, and I wanted his love. So, for years this went on as, our little secret. And, my dad was still suffering from his addiction at the time. And
was he a
so
heroin addict as well?
No, he was addicted to crack cocaine. That was his, drug of choice for years. And I mean, I'm pretty sure he still struggles with it. I'm not sure. We don't have a relationship today. But yeah, it was, like I said, it went on for years until, I think I was around 11 years old, and, his disease was progressing. And, I mean, obviously he has some mental health issues as well to commit an act such as this.
Mm-hmm.
So it, the things that he was asking me to do they were progressing. So he had asked me to perform oral sex on him. And at this point in my life, I was, a little older, and I knew that it was not something that I was willing to do. And I was kind of in a state of shock that he even asked me to do this. And that's when I stopped. I stopped it. I was not comfortable. I was growing up, and I knew how really messed up the whole situation was for years. And I ended up telling my mother about it. And this comes into manipulation as well. Like I said, I learned to manipulate at a young age. I was getting in trouble for something. I don't remember what it was. But I had used that as a form of manipulation, saying, at least your dad didn't ask you to, blank. And so she immediately thought I was lying, and I don't think that she wanted to get police involved, because it would bring attention and awareness to what was going on inside of my house with my mother. So it got pushed under the rug, and people didn't talk about it anymore, and it was kind of never really brought up again. And so I left it alone as well, and I stuffed that down and kind of never really thought about it again.
So they didn't really believe you, and you didn't get the support you needed.
Yes, exactly. It was excuses that were made for my dad. I think that his excuse was like he was on sleeping meds or something, but they only knew of that one time.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't realize that it was happening for so long, because nobody took the time to talk to me about it. I was a child, I was a child, and in my recovery today, I'm in therapy, and I'm trying to work through these things, and realizing that it's not my fault, but it is my responsibility to deal with the trauma today.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something I'm currently working on now with, forgiveness and learning how to deal with the resentment, which is it's a hard journey, you know. I mean, it's not something that's easily forgiven. But yeah, so that got swept under the rug, and I continued on with hanging out with the wrong crowd. I was pretty much able to do what I wanted to as a preteen, and into my teenage years. At 12 years old, my boyfriend was 16, and that's when I became, sexually active and experimenting with hallucinogenics and missing school and staying overnight with my boyfriend. And it was just a destructive, chaotic life as a child.
It's crazy to think of. I have a 13-year-old, and I could never imagine him last year even doing any of that.
Exactly. Yes, I have an 11-year-old son now, and I can't even. He just seems like such a baby to me. Still. Right. So it's kind of, it's crazy to look back on it now. But yeah, I just continued on through middle school and high school, experimenting with different drugs, and I found crack cocaine as well when I was about 16 years old, and hanging out with 40-year-old men, sneaking out of my house and doing these drugs with them, and trading sexual favors for drugs as a 16-year-old. I think because of the sexual abuse, I had this idea of sex in my mind as not that big of a deal. You know, it wasn't something that was like sacred to me or something, that should be, I was never brought up that way. We weren't a religious family. We didn't go to church. So it was just another activity, really. So
that's pretty common with childhood abuse and sexual abuse, that the mind makes it that way, so it doesn't hurt as much emotionally.
For sure, I agree completely. So yeah, that went on for on and off for a couple of years. I did graduate high school. I don't really know how, because I missed a lot of school. My senior year was, I think I missed like 75 days my senior year. But my mom, I remember my mom doing a lot of my schoolwork, and she wanted me to walk across that stage so badly. So we made it. And as soon as I got out of high school, I picked up that drug again and dropped out of, community
Which one?
College.
Heroin?
No, that was still the crack cocaine. That was my drug of choice for many years. And I was enrolled in community college for early childhood education, and that's what I wanted to become, was work at a daycare and then open my own daycare. But, you can't really work on your dreams struggling with addiction. So I dropped out, and my boyfriend, my ex-husband, I got him on the crack cocaine as well, and life kind of spiraled out of control. I was breaking into people's houses to support this drug addiction, and I caught my first larceny charge at 18 years old, and I spent a little bit of time in jail, not much, since it was my first offense, and that wasn't enough to turn my life around. I might have gotten clean for a little bit. I wasn't working any type of program, but I got pregnant at 19 years old with my son, and I thought that was my purpose. I was put on this world to be a mother, but again, I wasn't working any type of program. I wasn't working on the underlying issues of my addiction. I wasn't learning any coping mechanisms to deal with cravings or to deal with the trauma in my life or my mental health to keep me from picking up again. I thought that just having a child would be